Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we go through the area of rectangles and parallelograms. But before we talk about area, we better go through what these shapes actually are. So I've drawn for you a rectangle and a parallelogram. You can see that both of them are quadrilaterals. They have four sides. A parallelogram looks basically like a rectangle but slanted. The only difference between these two shapes is that this one here has right angles. A rectangle always has four right angles, but a parallelogram doesn't necessarily have any right angles. So for the ones I've drawn, this shape has right angles, this one doesn't. In fact, a rectangle is actually a type of parallelogram. It's a special type that has right angles. So to find the area of a rectangle is actually very simple. All we need to do is take L, the length, and times by the width. It's just this side times this side. So for a parallelogram, the area formula is actually area equals BH. Now, I want you to be careful here. H comes up in a lot of formula for area. Whenever we're talking about H, we're talking about the perpendicular height. We're not talking about this, which is the slant height. We're talking about the height that is perpendicular. So here, we're talking about the height that is perpendicular to the base. So the base is this side here, and H is the length here that is perpendicular at 90 degrees to the base. So the reason that this formula works is I've sort of made a little triangle here. I could actually cut out that triangle, move it over here, and then what I would have is a rectangle. And the area of that rectangle would be base times height. B times H. So that's why the formula for the area of a parallelogram works. So one thing I want you to note is that a square is actually a special type of rectangle. It's a rectangle where all four sides are equal. So in a rectangle, we know opposite sides are equal. In a square, all the sides are equal. See, it also has right angles. So of course, the formula for the area of a square, if the side length is S, the area is just S squared. So now we're actually going to get on to calculating some area. But what is area? Well, area is the amount of 2D space that can fit inside a shape. So in previous video, we looked at perimeter. So perimeter is measured in things like centimeters, meters, millimeters, and all that. Area is measured in square units. So it's measured in centimeters squared or millimeters squared, meters squared, kilometers squared, okay? So 1 millimeter squared, for example, is a square that is 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter. So if the area of a shape was, say, let's say 24 square millimeters, that means I could fit 24 of these inside the shape. So that's what area actually is. Let's get down to some calculations. So let's go through and calculate the area of each of these shapes. So starting up here, we have a rectangle. So the area is really easy to calculate. It's just 12 centimeters times 6 centimeters. So you can use your calculator for this if you need. 12 times 6 gives 72, and it's in centimeters squared because it's centimeters times centimeters. So what that means is the area being 72 square centimeters, that means I could fit 72 of these little squares that are 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. I could fit 72 of those inside this shape. So let's look at this second one here. So this is actually a parallelogram, not a rectangle. So its area is just going to be 13 base times perpendicular height, which is 5. 13 times 5 is 65 centimeters squared. So obviously that means that this shape could hold 65 of these square centimeters. So let's go to this shape here. So this one here, I'm telling you, is a square. It's a type of rectangle, so it also has right angles. So I can just use the formula for a rectangle. I can just go length times width. It just so happens that length and width are the same here. So the area of this shape will just be 7.5 times 7.5, or 7.5 squared. So that'll be 56.25. Because the side length was in millimeters, the area is in millimeters squared. So let's look at this example. So this is another parallelogram. So this time I've given you the length of both sides. So it turns out that just like a rectangle, opposite sides in a parallelogram are equal. So this side's 6, this side will be 6, and then these two sides will be 18. So I wrote this just to trick you. A lot of people, they get a question like this, they think the area is going to be 6 times 6 times 18 or whatever. They are just so used to just multiplying every number they see. Well, that won't work here. It turns out this number is not needed to find the area, because we know, and you're very smart, you know, that the area of a parallelogram is just base times perpendicular height. We don't need to know the slant height. So the area here, base times perpendicular height, so it'll be 96, and because the sides were in meters, the area is in meters squared. How easy is that? All right, now I know you're very excited. We're going to use the area of a rectangle or parallelogram to find a side length now. We're also going to look at the link between perimeter and area. So let's go and do a few of those kind of questions. All right, let's have a go at each of these three questions, which involves using the area to find a dimension. So I'll start off with this one here. Area of a parallelogram, 20 centimeters squared. Base is 5. What's the perpendicular height? Well, let's just draw a quick picture here, because this is actually a really simple question. So if we draw a parallelogram, which we know looks like this, so what we're saying is the area is 20 centimeters squared, and this base is 5 centimeters. We want to know the perpendicular height, which is this height here. But that's actually really easy, because we know that we just times base by perpendicular height to get the area. So I'm saying, what do I times by 5 to get 20? Well, that's really easy. That's just 20 divided by 5, which is 4, in this case, centimeters. So the height would just be 4, because 5 times 4, base times perpendicular height, gives me area. How easy is that? So now the next one says, what's the perimeter of a square if its area is 36 meters squared? So we've got our square here. We know that all sides are the same, and the area is 36 meters squared. So to find the perimeter, the length around the outside of the square, I need to find its side length. I need to use the area to find the side length. So let's say the side length is this box. I need to know what number I put in the box. What number times by itself gives 36? So of course that number happens to be 6. So the side length of the square must be 6 meters. If you didn't know that, if you didn't know off the top of your head what you times by itself to get 36, of course your calculator can help. It will just be the square root of 36. Square root of 36 is saying, what number do you square, what number do you times by itself to get 36? And of course that's 6. So I know that the side length must be 6 meters, so the perimeter is 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6, 4 times 6. The perimeter is equal to 24 meters. So if a square has area 36 meters squared, its perimeter must be 24 meters. All right, let's look at the last one, which is actually quite hard, but you're very smart. I know you'll be able to do it. So we're told in this question here that the area is 72 centimeters squared, and that this side is double this side. So the easiest way to do this would just be to go through factors of 72. So this number times this number must equal 72. So let's find factors of 72. So we could have 72 and 1, but 72 is not double 1. We could have 36 and 2. No, that doesn't work. 18 and 4. No, that doesn't work. 24 and 3. No, that doesn't work. How about 12 and 6? That works because 12 is double 6. So That means the length will be 12, the width will be 6, because 12 times 6 is 72, and the length is double the width. So we've used the area to find the sides. So obviously finding the perimeter is now really easy. It's just 2 times 12 plus 2 times 6, which is 36 centimeters. And that's how we can use the area of a rectangle or parallelogram to find a side length. Alright, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.